Welcome to today's video, which is a little bit different from usual because you may have seen in the last vlog that I posted that I was just getting ill, and in fact that illness has absolutely walloped me and I'm just coming out of it now, but I haven't been able to film. I've just been in bed. So I had started filming a series of wonderful places to visit in the local area, and as I haven't been well and I didn't want you to miss a video, I thought that I would bring one of those forward and share one of the gems of this area with you. It's the Church of Notre Dame de Gargilesse, which has a crypt below it where the paintings are from the 1200s. And I wanted to share it with you because, of course, Lalande has this incredibly beautiful painted chapel from the mid-19th century in the neo-Gothic style. It's called the neo-Gothic because it takes its inspiration from the Gothic paintings in churches before it. But even in the Romanesque period before it, the French were painting intricate frescoes into the walls of chapels. And I wanted to share this one with you. So we will go over to Gargilesse and the Church of Notre Dame now. I'm going to take you to see the 12th century Church of Notre Dame in Gargilesse. I love the story of the origins of this church because it was built by Hugues de Naillac after his return from the Holy Lands, where he had led a band of local Berrichon men into battle in the Holy Lands. Whilst there, he had met a monk in Constantinople who gifted him a wooden Byzantine statue of the Virgin Mary, and all of the men that he were with claimed that she had protected them during battle and therefore had quite extraordinary powers. When they returned to Gargilesse, he built a chapel to house that statue, which is still there today, down in the crypt, which also has the most glorious frescoes. Originally, the chapel was part of the castle, so it was a private chapel with a door going straight into the castle, but that door has been walled up now and it is the local village church. George Sand loved this church. She described it as a perfect example of Romanesque architecture where the whole is absolutely in unity. And I can see what she meant. It is the most beautiful, simple but elegant church. Quite extraordinary in its age to think that we are standing in something over 800 years old. One of the most beautiful features of this church are the decorated capitals at the top of each of the columns. There are 129 of them, and they show symbolic and fantastical beasts and scenes from the Old and New Testament. But of all of the stunning capitals in this church, the most famous ones are of the 24 elders from the Apocalypse. In the book of Revelation, it is said, "Before him there was a sea of glass like unto crystal. The 24 elders fall down before him and worship him that liveth for ever and ever." And here those 24 elders are depicted in the most spectacular, detailed carvings. And you can see vestiges of the frescoes up at the top, and down in the crypt it gets even more exciting. But before we go downstairs, we get to meet one of the members of the Naillac family. This is Guillaume de Naillac. Obviously it was Hugues de Naillac that brought back that wonderful statue from the Holy Land, but Guillaume is the only member of the family to have an effigy still in the church. And here he is with his faithful dog at his feet. He also went on the Crusades and he died in 1266. Isn't it extraordinary to be able to gaze on his features all of these centuries later and to think of the life that he had? In those days, people would barely have gone to the local village, let alone to another country, and he went so much further than that, all the way to the Holy Lands. The tales he must have come back with, all of the villagers must have wanted to come and hear everything that had happened. I find it extraordinary to think of today when travel is so easy. If the sculptor is to be believed, he was a very handsome man. find it very moving to be standing in front of that simple wooden statue that was brought back all those hundreds of years ago from Constantinople, and who's still presiding over the crypt where she sat for all this time. And in fact, if we go over and have a closer look, you'll see that the locals still believe that she has powers to protect. And in front of her, there's a little tray of offerings, though some are more confusing than others. We're not too sure why some people have left till receipts, and the light bulb is very bewildering. It has to be said that as crypts go, it's not very crypt-like, and it is beautifully light. We are surrounded by frescoes that date from the 12th and 13th century, and in fact they weren't discovered until the 1960s. They were just lying under layers of plaster all this time, but you can see that they were made at different times, because occasionally you'll see a thicker layer of plaster, and that's a later fresco. But here it was decided that frescoes from different periods would be left, so you can see the changes around the church. Around us you can see the original 12th century frescoes, and they're really a storybook. It's to speak to a congregation that couldn't read. The frescoes are all scenes from the life of Jesus and from the book of Revelations, and at the center point in the ceiling you can see God with a sword in his mouth, and that is straight from the book of Revelations. From his mouth comes a sharp sword, so that with it he may strike down the nations. And I believe it's no surprise that we are seeing this symbol in a Crusaders chapel. This must have been the image that they had when going into a holy war. It is not something that we would do today, but we are talking about an entirely different moral code and an entirely different century. It's easy when looking at the frescoes to be distracted by the beautiful painted scenes, but I also find the repeating patterns fascinating, because that is the style that was drawn out in the Neo-Gothic period. And our chapel of St. Joseph at the Chateau de Lalande is a Neo-Gothic chapel built in the 1860s, and one of the most instantly recognizable themes of the Neo-Gothic style is repeated patterns. But of course that comes from the original Gothic styling, which you can see here. There are very, very simple triangles. But then as you go more towards the 15th century, you can see again repeated patterns in shapes, very, very simple, but very powerful in their simplicity. I love the painting of the Day of Judgment, because you can see people coming extremely cheerfully out of their coffins. What more cheerful thing can you see in a church if you've come to pray for your loved ones who've already departed this earth, or for people who are sick or suffering, than to see that scene? Now, I promise I don't have a morbid fascination with tombs, but I do want to show you the tombs down here. These date from many centuries after Guillaume de Naillac upstairs. Here we're in the 18th and the 19th century. The mother of this marquis, she had a beautiful name. Her name was Olympe, found the Chateau de Gargilesse in ruin and rebuilt it as it is today in that beautiful 18th century style. Her son, this Louis-Charles du Breuil-du-Bost, was actually imprisoned during the Revolution, during the Terror, but he managed to escape the guillotine and was released and able to come back here to Gargilesse. Also lying here is his son, who was one of the last of the du Breuil-du-Bost to be living here in Gargilesse. Georges Sand knew this man. He was an elderly man in his 80s when she was living in the village, and she described him as a very solid man in his 80s, always on solitary walks in the heat of the midday sun, going through all of the little paths in this beautiful countryside. She also added, "I don't think he ever renovated any parts of his property. On the other hand, I don't think he destroyed any either, so I guess it's not too bad." And as we're looking at these tombs, we realize that probably that was the last of the du Breuil-du-Bost, because his son, you can see, is called Comte de Gargilesse, and that's because he never became Marquis. If you look closer at the dates, you see that that's because he died before his father, because in France, the sons of a Marquis are called Count, and then on the death of the father, the eldest son becomes Marquis as well. But dear Charles Antoine, probably because of all of those walks and a calm life with no bothering to do any renovations, lived to an age of 92. What a perfect place to be laid to rest, in the light of a stained glass window, in the crypt of your family's church, next to the view of the valley beyond. going to the Hôtel Georges Sand for lunch. We've taken a pause in our visit of the village to come to this lovely restaurant, and we're having local specialities. So Philip is just having beef. This area is known for its wonderful beef. It's also known for its goat's cheese. So I've gone for the goat's cheese salad. The warm cheese is delicious and it's served with an apple compote. That was a delicious lunch of local food, and now we've just got time to stroll through the streets a little bit and pop into one of the local pottery shops, because now it's really an artist's village. There's a lot of art studios and pottery shops, and then we'll have a little stroll through the streets before heading home. I'm with Bénédicte, who makes these beautiful objects. Ça fait longtemps que vous êtes ici?
Ça fait 2 ans et demi.
Et vous êtes dans un emplacement merveilleux devant le château.
Ouais, c'est une grande chance d'avoir ce local ici à Gargilesse, avec le château en face de moi.
Ah oui.
Et Gargilesse a une très belle énergie, c'est extraordinaire.
Est-ce que ça vous donne beaucoup d'inspiration?
Oui, parce que l'environnement est magnifique. Et puis Gargilesse a beaucoup de peintres, d'artistes, de musiciens. Et ça nourrit beaucoup.
Vous vous inspirez l'un et l'autre?
Oui, en échangeant.
Et ça fait longtemps que vous créez?
Oui. J'étais architecte, urbaniste. Et le soir, j'allais faire de la terre. Et un jour, je me suis dit, c'est très important pour moi, je dois changer de métier.
Oui. Ah, ça c'est beau, de suivre son rêve dans la vie. Ben, félicitations, parce que je trouve que vous avez un très grand talent et j'adore ce que vous faites.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci. All these beautiful, I love the texture and that lovely green, and it's so deep there in the bottom, like a celadon. And I love this big perfect cheese platter. I hope you enjoyed visiting Gargilesse, and in future I'm hoping to make a big series of videos all about things in the local area, so that any of you who are coming to visit will know what you can visit around here and what is very, very beautiful, and also for those of you who can't visit, so that you get to share in the beauty of central France. So please let me know what you think of that idea in the comments below, and now I'm going to go back to bed, but hopefully by tomorrow I will be up and at it and the videos will go back to normal.